Could you state your name for the recording?
I'm Luella Allen Waller, and I study corals.
So, what exactly is coral bleaching?
So when you see a healthy coral, what you're actually seeing in the color of that coral comes from symbiotic algae that live inside of the coral's cells. And these single-celled, almost plant-like organisms photosynthesize and give sugar to the coral. So they're incredibly important for coral survival. When it gets really hot, the coral unfortunately expels its algae. So we call it bleaching because the coral then appears white. But really that's because you're sort of seeing its bones.
So, can corals recover from these bleaching events?
Yes, bleaching is a really bad thing, but it's not always insurmountable. And if a coral recovers its algae, they will bounce back. Another reason to have some hope is something that we call environmental memory. We think that exposure to a low level of some stresses can prime coral or get it ready to see that stress again, and this time to be more resistant to it. Acquiring that resistance over time actually goes beyond resistance. That becomes resilience. That becomes adapting within its lifetime. We're looking at a future where some corals in some parts of the world might bleach on a yearly basis. How a coral responds to that repeated stressor is going to be more important than, I think, almost anything else.
Why should the average person care about coral science?
Well, if you breathe, you should care about the ocean. Historically, half of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere comes from algae that live in the ocean. Reefs are also, they're incredibly biodiverse, which of course provide a lot of cultural and aesthetic value. I mean, you could even go bigger and say any community, period, that has a reef near it relies on it because reefs actually provide an enormous amount of coastal protection. They're valued at contributing $2 billion annually in the US alone to coastal flood protection, which is just unfathomable. But it's unfathomable because we've never had to fathom without it.
So, who do you think is more resilient, corals or humans?
Well, corals have us beat in terms of longevity on the planet. They've been around 500 million years. You can find them in the deep sea as well as in shallow waters. So they're incredibly widespread and diverse, but we are changing the environment faster now than they've ever seen before. And so I think for our own preservation and for the needs of humanity to be met, we need to adapt.
Yeah, it's almost like we could show a little more resilience ourselves in order to match their resilience.
Yeah, we have to get on their level.